Bonjour and welcome to a new discussion about comics. I've read quite a few things this month, and I thought maybe you would be interested in hearing about it. So I'll start by something that's very special for me. It's sort of the Swashbucklers, published by, I think it's going to be by Dynamite. But at the moment, it's only available as a Kickstarter. Basically, Bill Mantlo, the writer, was involved in an accident years ago, and they've decided to do this book as a Kickstarter to actually help him pay his medical bills, because it was a hit and run, horrible story. You can check online, there's all the details. And so they've done that. Sort of the Swashbuckler is one old comic book series from the early 80s. I mean, so I think it's 1984, and it was done by Bill Mantlo and with Jackson Guice and also Joe Fisherwood and Colin Doran. And it's good fun. It was published by Epic Comics at the time. Epic was one of the brand from Marvel. And it's literally pirates in space, so can't get any more fun than that. The hardcover is actually a full story. I mean, you've got some beautiful art in there. It's a full story in 12 issues, and it's good fun. It's for a good cause. It's really the type of stories you would get in the 80s. So it does have, it's a bit quaint in some ways, but I really love that. There's going to be a normal edition later. For now, it's just the Kickstarter one. So really good, and it's for a good cause. So a nice start. Then we're going to DC. DC did the Milk Wars. So Milk Wars is a crossover between Justice League and Doom Patrol originally, but then there's Wonder Woman with Shade the Changing Girl. You've got Kev Carson and Swamp Thing, and Batman and Mother Panic. The Batman one's actually quite fun because Batman is a priest in it. So basically, those people, there is an invasion, and the invasion takes over people by letting them drink milk. It does start as strange as that. It's really good fun. It's very, very much what you expect from Doom Patrol, this craziness, this very, very weird mix of stories, but really good fun. Highly recommended, really fun. There will be 5 one-shots, if I remember correctly. Or is it 5? And basically there will be a collected edition later. So quite good fun. We go to Marvel. Marvel's released one of those new preview to an event thingy called Infinity Countdown Prime. So I suppose that it countdowns to Infinity, which is going to be a new event with the Infinity Stones. I wasn't really looking forward to it, to be honest, because I was thinking, oh God, not again, another event, oh, the Infinity Stone, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually, first of all, you do have the return of Wolverine completely this time. Got some interesting characters, beautiful Deodato artwork. I mean, this is very pretty. And you've got a weird mix of characters. It's basically letting you know where all the Infinity Stones are for the main story that's going to come. So it's much better than what I was expecting. Good fun, interesting to read. Back to DC, and DC has been doing an event for the past few months called Metal. Metal could have been really, really good. The problem is, I'm not a huge fan of Scott Snyder. I think he's a very overrated writer. But it started well. It's basically, there is this dark multiverse on top of the 52 universes that DC has. And the whole story is a mess. It's complicated, it's trying to be very clever, and it fails. It's basically Snyder trying to be Grant Morrison, but Grant Morrison can write, and also he's crazy, so because he's crazy, it does help. So think about Final Crisis and how, but without the writing talent behind Final Crisis. That's the best way of describing Metal. So, and quite disappointing Capullo art because it feels a bit rushed, but a shame. I was really looking forward to it, and nah, that doesn't work. So, but Meton is actually a prelude to a new initiative by DC called the New Age of Heroes. So they are basically putting out some new comic books with new characters or reusing old characters in some cases, and they've started. There's already 3 out. And the first one is Damage. Damage. So all those books have a very silly gatefold cover, which makes things very impractical, as you can see. What is Damage? Damage is done by Tony Daniel, and it's basically a military that's been experimented on, and he transforms into an unstoppable monster that's always very angry, and he's pursued by the military who are trying to control him. If it does sound familiar, it's because it's very, 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 very much like the Incredible Hulk, which in itself is quite disappointing, because that's the first book of a new initiative, and it feels like a rip-off Hulk. So you think, okay, it's just one, so maybe the next one is going to be better. So they've got now The Silencer by John Romita Jr. So same thing, you've got the silly gatefold cover that's very impractical. You've got some beautiful John Romita Jr. art. I think it's probably the best thing he's done in a very long time. And it's about that ex-mercenary who wants to take care of her family, and she gets pulled back in because everyone wants to kill her. And if it sounds a bit familiar as well, it's because it's like a cross between Kick-Ass and the Punisher. But still, this is better written than the first one, and she does have an interesting power, which is to actually mute sound. So it's not bad, but still it's like, you could have done better, DC. And then we get to the third one, because we're thinking, it's going to improve. So you've got Sideways. If I tell you that Sideways is written by Dan Didio, you know it's not going to be very good, because one thing that Dan Didio should never do is write. Once again, you've got this stupid gatefold. That's very impractical. And this time, it's a teenager who's got the power to basically go sideways, hence the name, between dimensions. So it's got some weird powers. But the problem is, when you look at him, it makes you think Spider-Man, doesn't it? And yes, when you read, it does make you think about Spider-Man completely. So, a very nice Rocafort art, but not very good. So there's more comics coming from this same initiative, so let's hope they improve. And we're going back to Marvel. Marvel is releasing another X-Men series called XMen Red, with the return of Jean Grey. So it's a new team led by Jean Grey, with Nightcrawler and Submariner and a few other people. I won't tell you much about the story, because you have to discover it for yourself. It's very big. It's very interesting. The villain is really good. And it's written by Tom Taylor, and Tom Taylor is really, really good. And Mahmoud Asrar is doing the art, and it's very, very decent. So a nice surprise, because I think that out of the 3 X-Men books at the moment, this is probably the best written of the 3, because X-Men Blue is okay, Gold is a bit boring, and this is really good fun. So something to look into if you're looking for a good X-Men comic book. And we still have a few things. I want to head back. This is completely different. So this is published by IDW, Lovecraft, The Myth of Cthulhu. And the reason I've got this is it's basically done by Esteban Maroto, who used to be one of those artists known in the 70s, mostly for work that he's done for Warren Publishing, the people who did Vampirella. and he did a lot of horror and science fiction. So this is actually some of his old stories that he did in the early 80s, and for some reason they weren't published the way they were supposed to, and it's a very complicated story about this. And this is the first time that we've got all those really nice, very classic comic book stories in black and white adapted from Lovecraft novels. It's nice. I mean, I love Esteban Maroto, so I'm biased, of course. But this is really, really good. If you like some classic horror comic book, this is it. It's really well worth it. So quite fun. Back to Marvel. Marvel. This is the best thing, or one of the best things that Marvel has published over the past few years. Vision. You've got the full series in that. It's written by Tom King, who now is writing Batman, and who is also doing Mr. Miracle. And this is really good. Basically, Vision decides to create his own family of synthezoids, and of course, everything goes wrong. And it's very adult. It's got a Vertigo vibe to it. It's very adult. Some people have even called that Marvel's version of the Watchmen, but I completely disagree. It has nothing to do, not even thematically. It's all about living and what living is. Brilliantly written, very nice art. And the interesting thing is that when you look at the book, okay, and this is the comic book, and all of that are supplement with the complete scripts and illustration, and so really good. I can't recommend enough this Vision, the hardcover complete series. Brilliant. You won't regret it. Really good. And we've got one last one for the road, and for that we're going back to something classic. We're going back to something DC. We're going to Night Force. Night Force was a comic book from the 80s by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan, the legendary Gene Colan. And it's basically Night Force. The best way of describing Night Force is Mission Impossible for horror. So you've got Baron Winters, who is this very odd character living in a mansion, who has agents all over the world, and his agents are actually doing investigations in the mystical and the magical and the horrifying. It's really good. It's very dark, and that was published way too early, so it failed because people were not quite ready for that. We're talking, I mean, very serious horror and very adult theme in DC Comics before Vertigo. And so people didn't expect that thing. This is a masterpiece and beautiful art by Gene Colan. And you've got the full series, the first full series, because they did 2 more series after, which are not as good. But here you go. That's the last recommendation for this month. So hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye!